Metalcore Minute podcast. I'm your host, Sean Mott. On today's episode, we have Mike Beggs. He owns Revenge of the Nerd, which is a clothing line which mashes up hardcore and metalcore designs with nerd stuff. Super awesome. I own a ton of items from him. If you haven't heard it before, definitely check it out. Today, we pretty much talk all about comics, how comics have affected pop culture, what comics we like, what comics we recommend to check out. Before we get into that, there's a few news topics. Venom 2 is now titled Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and will now be released on June 25th, 2021, which ends up landing about a few weeks in front of Spider-Man 3. Unless that gets moved as well. DC came out and announced their new slate of dates that have been moved. Wonder Woman 84 stays at the new pushback date of August 14th, 2020. The next movie after that isn't until 2021, almost a year after Wonder Woman, which is the Suicide Squad, which is August 6th, 2021, followed by The Batman, that's been moved to October 1st, 2021, Black Adam, December 22nd, 2021, The Flash moved up to June 3rd, 2022. Shazam 2 is now November 4th, 2022. And Aquaman 2 is December 16th, 2022. On the metalcore front, the Ghosts Inside released their first song since the tragic bus accident they had a few years ago, titled Aftermath. It's an incredible song. Watch the video. Super emotional. I was at their comeback show, and it was nothing short of unbelievable and incredible. And they have a new self-titled album coming out June 5th. That's it for the news. Now to my conversation with Mike Beggs. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good.
Hanging in there.
Yeah, living the podcast dream.
Yep.
So we were talking a little bit before this, but this one's a little special. You're the first person who I don't really know and I'm not friends with. And
Yeah.
You're the first person who's not involved now with the music industry.
Yeah. I'm retired and I'm not internet famous.
I'm not internet famous either. It's fine. But yeah, so my wife gave me the idea. If you guys don't know, Mike runs a clothing company called Revenge of the Nerd, and he mashes up pretty much metalcore and hardcore designs with nerd stuff. And I've been buying stuff from him for a few years now, I think. And I've followed it pretty much from the start. The Guardians Terror Rip was the first one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't buy it, but I remember seeing it and be like, that's really cool. That's a cool fucking idea. And ever since that, I just followed the page. And I think the first one I bought was the Weapon X Wolverine one.
Yeah, that's when I started getting real deep into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight edge, Wolverine, put it together. You can't.
Funny thing that is like that's a straight edge design by association, but it's funny when I did that outright mashup with Danger Bot, that was a straight edge shirt. People were like, why do you got to be so pushy about it? I was like, dude, I've had like 3 or 4 of these shirts. Like
that one straight up has an X on a hand.
Yeah, I was just like...
Yeah, so my wife goes, hey, why don't you hit up the dude from Friends of the Nerd and just talk comics on her podcast? And she's been my quote-unquote producer for this, coming up with ideas when I'm stuck with ideas.
Perfect.
Like, yeah, it's a great idea. So I just shot you an Instagram message, and I didn't know if you'd say yes or no, because like I said, we don't really know each other at all.
No, totally.
Other than random being like, oh, yeah, that's cool, or yeah, this blah, 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 just random.
I made the joke
bullshit.
that you and I met the same way that me and my wife met.
Just over the internet?
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, I started the message and you were like, yeah, I'd love to do that. And I was like, perfect, sick, let's fucking do it.
It's weird. Somebody asked me, there was a few people that asked me before, but nothing ever came of it because I'm really easy. If somebody asks me to do something, I just go like, yeah, totally. But if you don't follow through I'm just going to keep doing whatever it is I'm doing. I'm not going to be like, hey man, can I please, I'm not going to pander to be on your thing. But this is cool because I actually got to listen to episodes of this. The second you asked me, I was like, I'm always going to check out people's stuff.
Right.
So the second you asked me, I went and listened to a couple episodes. I listened to the episode with Joey. And like I said, it was so funny because everything that he was saying, I was like, I'm just going to come on this podcast and I'm going to sound just like him without an accent.
That's fine.
Because all of our opinions we're in a Facebook group of comic book nerd stuff together. And our opinions are pretty similar. And I was like, okay, am I going to sound like a dork or I just copied his homework?
I don't think so. Because as you listened to on that, we agreed on a lot of stuff. There's some stuff we don't agree on, and we'll get on Twitter arguments about, but everything we talked about we agreed with.
All the important stuff I feel like we line up with, as far as how people's critique of movies and stuff. I don't want to jump ahead, but I'm just like, I don't like critics. I don't like people that can't suspend disbelief, or I hate people that just bitch about things that they're not even fans of it. They just bitch about it. Like,
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Dislike.
Hard dislike for me too. So you run this small business. How has coronavirus affected you with everything? I know everything is mostly online, but didn't you open up a brick and mortar store not too long ago too?
Oh yeah. I feel like this podcast is going to be laced with all these weird, tragic stories, because I forget that things that have happened to me in my life haven't happened to the average person. And there's always silver linings to all the weird things that I'm going to say. So let me preface this by saying I'm not a totally damaged person by the things that have happened to me. But so I had a brick and mortar store because my end goal was to open a comic book shop with like an arcade. I wanted it to be like an after school type thing, because I grew up in a really bad neighborhood, and I wanted a place that was local for people to be able to go and read and game. And then also I would not just sell my stuff. I was going to try to get other small businesses that I'm friends with to like sell their enamel pins and their t-shirts. That's so awesome. A person that is a mutual friend, it's like my wife's friend's husband, he was opening a business. I won't name them. They opened a business, and it was like all these little shops within a big building. And I work seasonally at Knott's Berry Farm as a scare actor, like as a monster, like they do at Universal.
That's amazing.
I've done that for about 15 years. So I had an employee, and as I was going out of town for the month, they started to get real shady and asking me about like, are you going to be here? Or I don't know. Things just got weird. Long story short, they ended up like trying to steal all the stuff from my shop, and then like extorting me for money. And I had to go like kind of check the dude. And it became a big thing. So I just decided to close the store, just to the fact that like I didn't want to be beholden to anybody. And it's sort of like, yeah, dude, it was like a weird thing. Long story short, the shop is closed. The online store is pretty much where it's always going to be at until I can get the funding to do what I really want to do and what I'm passionate about. I don't want to half-ass it. I don't want to owe anybody anything except for investors and banks, I guess. Right. But like, yeah, that was just a real weird situation.
Wow.
Yes.
So has it affected you really at all? Since it's all online, probably not.
I would say yes and no. So it's funny because the last release I did before everything started getting shut down was a Rucking Fountain collab. And Sean is an old friend of mine. He used to do like Rotting Out Foundation and all the merch. Defiant Youth was his merch company.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
So he moved away and started Rucking Fountain, and our companies followed each other, and we didn't even know that we were. I didn't know it was Sean. He didn't know it was Mike.
Oh man, that's
and we've
crazy.
Been friends for like 15 years. Anyway, his company is very big, very successful. I mean, not to put like a successful target on his back, but he does well. So we did the shirt collab that we were planning for like 2 years, and it was a pretty big release. But the day that we put up the pre-order, they announced all the shutdowns. So like it did well, but it was the last big thing I did. And I've been putting up shirts. Obviously, it's affected me. People aren't really shopping online like they used to.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily an optimistic person. I'm just like I'm a real person. Like I deal with the reality of things. I'm not like stressing out about it. Yeah, I try to find ways to keep people involved without trying to make them spend money, which is how the book club started and stuff. Like,
yeah,
I just want people to engage. If they don't buy for me, that sucks, but it is what it is.
Right. I mean, that's why I started this pretty much. To give someone, and I've never really heard a podcast do what I've been doing, like take a topic and kind of mix the metalcore, hardcore world with the nerd world. Pretty much what you did, but in audio form, I guess.
Especially because if you look at Twitter lately, the metalcore and hardcore world still pretends that they were never associated with each other.
Yeah, it changes every day. It depends what's cool. You know, if one day people will be shitting on the Ghost Inside, and then a year when they're cool, quote unquote cool again, everyone's cool with them. It's
ironically
insane.
They're all friends with each other. And a funny little side note, without being specific, is I have a friend, an old friend who I met when I used to sell merch for Winds of Plague. And now don't get me wrong, I still had scene credit. I had seen American Nightmare every tour they ever played in California. So I'm allowed to like metalcore, just in case anybody has any questions about my credentials.
Oh my God.
I'm fucking 36, dude. Metalcore and hardcore bands used to tour together. Seriously? A friend of mine who I met through like metalcore and hardcore shows, I was walking to the Misery Signals 10-year anniversary show. He was down the street at another venue, and he was going to see a different show. And he goes, "Oh, are you going to see that metalcore show?" First off, put some fucking respect on the Misery Signals name.
Straight up.
And then I called him out in front of his friends. I was like, didn't I meet you by selling you Winds and Plague shirts? I was like, are you fucking serious right now? I was like, can I just go like what I like?
That's good. I've had a ton of those moments too. 100%.
It's so weird because those same people will like try to post the artsiest music and they're like, this is my shit. I'm like, whoa, dude, you can't like acoustic stuff if you like punk. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to cross-contaminate. That's not how this shit works, bro.
Oh my God. That's funny.
It's so corny.
So what got you into comics in the beginning? Because all I've seen you is posts. You're the same as me as far as buying. I like buying trades. I don't like buying single issues. I've done it for a few runs, but it's just
liberating.
Annoying. Yeah, and it's some of my friends make fun of me because they're weekly buyers, and they'll be like, "Oh, are you caught up?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I'm waiting for the trade. You can make fun of me all I want. I'm going to buy the trade. I don't care."
Let me just say right now that the most liberating thing that I ever did in my life is I had enough long boxes to fill up a room. And, you know, it just takes up space. They're very hard to move. They're very heavy.
Yeah.
It was just like one day, I literally was leaving Ontario Comic Con and I heard this girl talking to her boyfriend in the parking lot going, I wish I had the new 52 Aquaman. I go, I have that whole run. You want it? And then she's like, oh, here's a list of these other things that I need. I go, I have all that. I'll sell you my entire collection of comic books for $500. I'm talking, I will pick out the first appearances of whatever I want. You can just take these boxes if you come pick them up. And she bought them. Wow. And it was the most liberating thing because it was like a couple $1,000s worth of books.
Right. Yeah.
But it just felt so good to not have to have those. I worked at a comic shop, so my pull list was like 150 books. I was obsessed with trying to read everything that came out ever. And then I found myself like 30 issues into these books that I thought objectively were crappy. And I'm like, why did I do that? Like I felt obligated to read it. And trades are so cool because I can just say, okay, the run is over. Now I can like Netflix binge it.
Yeah.
I have 30 issues right in front of me. Bam, I'll go through that in like a couple days. And now I can either keep it or do a giveaway on Rotten, or like, I don't like this trade. Does anybody want to buy it? Like,
right. Easy.
Way better. They're buying like, I got the 1 in 50 variant. And now I got to make sure none of these books get fucked up or foxed on the edges so I can resell them on eBay. And it's just like, ugh, it's so stressful.
Yeah. So I got super obsessed with the new Donny Cates Venom run. And then obviously that turned into the Absolute Carnage is in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. And I bought every issue besides the Venom issues because I've been doing just the trades for the Venom. And I bought every tie-in. I think I'm missing one. And I was like, I'll read it in order. You know, I'll read it at issue order and everything, all the tie-ins. Started reading the tie-ins, and I was like, these are terrible. These are not good. So I read a few of them, and I'm like, fuck this, and just read the actual Absolute Carnage run. And I was like, I'll just put these in my short box and never look at them ever again, I guess.
It's not like it's not that all tie-ins suck. It's just that we got to be honest. Like these people are trying to make money, so the marketing scheme is like, okay, if we do this 1 in 50 variant, people will buy it. If we do a tie-in, they'll feel like they're missing out. And it's just like, I'm so glad I'm not a part of that anymore. And even though people will ask me about recent books, I'm always a year behind because I wait for the trades to come out. But it's okay because I'll get to that. I'm so glad I have my notes in front of me because I'm an adult with ADD. So I'll circle back to the actual question you asked me. But I'll talk about the benefits of reading trades. But you asked how I got into this.
Yes.
So I'm 36, and I feel like I come from what is considerably the best generation to like pop culture. Because in the 80s, I had fucking G.I. Joe, Ninja Turtles, Centurions, He-Man, Supernaturals, Visionaries. There were all these toys. And I think that might have been my gateway into other things. So I had a black and white tube TV in my papa's room that I used to watch Ninja Turtles on. There was color TVs. Let me preface this. There was obviously color TVs in the 80s, but he had the big TV and he worked as a postmaster. So he'd come home and watch what he was watching. I'd be like, fuck it, I'll watch the black and white TV. I need to watch Ninja Turtles. So I watched those, I went to the theater when the Ninja Turtles movie came out. And as far as my introduction into comics, I didn't grow up living with my mom. So I would see her like a couple times a year, but she had gifted me this pile of books, and it was Spider-Man. So about the time that I got those, it was like everything right before Maximum Carnage, and then a bunch of Excalibur books, which my introduction into the Phoenix character was Rachel Summers in Excalibur. And I think like the idea of, I knew what the X-Men were because I watched the cartoon,
Right.
And I was like obviously aware of those books, but I just didn't own them. But to see this team of like mutants that weren't the mainstream, I was like, okay. And that was my introduction into comics. And then I got a gift card for a comic book shop for my aunt, and I think I bought like Batman Nightfall.
Wow.
And then how do you not look at Kelly Jones's art and go, I don't know what the fuck this book is, but I see Batman and everybody is jacked and it looks violent. And I think like as a 10 or 11-year-old, I was like, I'm on board with this, like whatever this is. And I think the first comic so I say there's always this moment where you choose a book. There's things that people get you into, and then there's the first time it's like choosing your Pokemon.
Yes.
You know, like you see a book, you see a number one and you go, that's the book. That's my book. Mine was Generation X. And it's funny that Joey talked about Scott Lobdell because he wrote most of these books.
Right.
So Generation X they were, besides Jubilee, they were all known-in characters. They were angsty teenage characters. They were basically the next generation of the New Mutants.
Okay, yeah.
Which I forgot. New Mutants, Excalibur, and Spider-Man were the first comics I got. But like Gen X was the one that I chose, and I was like, they're just angry teenagers. They don't know how to deal with their powers. Chris Bachalo was the artist on it, and it wasn't buff superhero stuff. If you're familiar with Chris Bachalo's art, it's like nothing I had ever seen.
Right.
I was like, this is kind of wacky. Everything, like his art is so unique. I was like, this is fucking it. Like, this is my book. And that was how I officially was like, I am a comic book person, not just because someone gave me the books, but like I am intentionally collecting this run of this book. Like, this is my book. I'm the Generation X person. Like,
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm one of the few people that I think the superhero genre wanted to turn people into that I don't think has been successful, because I think people don't know where to jump into. So I watched all the anime cartoons when I was a kid. I was obsessed with Batman, had Batman sheets, Power Ranger sheets, all that stuff.
Yeah, those were the shows.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course. So I always loved that stuff. Anytime a superhero movie would come out, I would go see it in the theaters and everything. And then when the MCU started getting rolling, I was like, I really love this stuff. This stuff is awesome. And for my birthday one year, my wife Sam got me the first 2 issues of Doomsday Clock.
Sick.
Yeah, very sick, because obviously it's the first time Watchmen has been touched since Watchmen. It was very taboo, but they pulled it off. And I was like, holy fuck, this is cool.
Probably after years of messaging Alan Moore and having him be like, I don't want to. I hate it.
No one will ever touch Watchmen ever again. And that dude is the definition of old man yells at cloud. Like,
he's so funny. He's so funny. I love and they're like, oh, there's a new Alan Moore interview. This would be fucking great.
Yeah. So she bought me that, and then I told one of my friends, and he was kind of the same way. He's gone off the total deep end as far as single issues and everything like that. I was like, yo, Sam just bought me some comics. They're awesome. And he's kind of the same way. He loves all the Marvel stuff and DC and everything. And he's like, let's go to a comic book shop together. Because at that point, I think a few more of the issues of Doomsday Clock were already out. So we went and I bought the ones I was missing to be up to date. And then I think for something else, she bought me the first Venom Donny Cates trade. And I think that's what really sucked me into buying them, because I read it, really know what it was going to be like. And I read it, I was like, this is incredible. Mm-hmm. I love this. So that sucked me in even more. So that's what really got me into comics. But I feel like I'm one of the few people that people are hoping that, oh, they love these movies, maybe they'll go buy comics. You know what I mean? Because I know from listening to other podcasts and stuff that the comic industry isn't exactly failing, but it's not like it's booming either. It's at a better point than it was, but but it hasn't really spiked like I think people hoped it would. So, but yeah, and my friend, he buys graded shit. He's all about he goes through waves of what he wants first appearances for. Like, he just texted me before this and was like, hey, I see this the first time X-Men and the Avengers meet, and it's graded, but it's in pretty terrible condition. He showed me the grade, and it was a 2. And I was like, dude, it's a 2. Why are you going to spend money on that? I was like, wait for a better one, man.
I'm all for shit. I don't get anything graded. I'll take a shitty copy because I don't get anything graded. My Swamp Thing #1 probably wouldn't grade higher than a 5 or 6, but Bernie and Len signed it. I'm not ever going to resell it. So to me, it's like, I don't give a shit if it's graded.
No, I don't either, because I have 0 graded anything.
Yeah.
But I know he does. loves that stuff. So I was like, dude, just wait. You'll find a better version. It's fine.
I think I fell out of. I guess I should have mentioned that in my love story for comics. I fell out of love with comics once I started getting old enough to try to kiss girls and light things on fire and skate. And yeah, I totally forgot. So like I said, there's some weird stuff that's happened. My mom, if you combine the show Sons of Anarchy with Breaking Bad, that's basically my step parents. Wow. And like our house got raided when I was in middle school, and all my comics got destroyed and then eventually stolen. But I had like the entire original cast of Star Wars autographed. Like a Knights, not oh God, I don't remember the video game that came out for Saga, but it was the only thing I had for them to sign. I was a kid. Cause like the first San Diego Comic Con I ever went into, I discovered by accident. Like I was skating downtown with my friends and the convention center, there were people going in. I was like, this looks interesting. And we just walked in. Wow. And I spent most of high school just sneaking in because they didn't have like RFID chips back then. You just you could photocopy someone's badge, and there was like, here 20 of us are getting in today. Fucking, like we would all, my only friend in high school that had a computer, as far as we were concerned, he was fucking hacking the planet just because he had a computer. So he could like we were photocopying badges, getting in like fucking yeah. But when I was amazing. Like 11, the first Comic Con I ever walked into, it was like the original cast of Star Wars, besides like, Harrison Ford. Carrie wasn't there, but like David Prowse, Jeremy Bulloch, all those guys. But anyway, our house got raided. All my comics got stolen. So there was a whole chunk of time in like high school where I still kind of paid attention, but I was just like, I had my heart broken by being a collector. And I was just like, fuck it. And then I didn't come back to it until I was a young adult. And I went, I have independent income now. I was going to hardcore shows and stuff, but I wasn't into what my other friends were into. And I was like, I need my hobby back. Like I feel like it was a big part of my identity. Right. So to be able to like sort of reclaim it and like, nobody's going to come steal this. Like, this is mine again. I can collect. Right. And then it just went fucking bananas from there.
Usually how it goes. It's a deep, dark hole once you get started.
I'm sure like every person I dated through like my 20s was just like, what the fuck? Like, I'm like, yeah, it looks cool, right? Like,
this is so cool, right? So what's your favorite comic run right now? It doesn't have to be like it came out this year, but
I was like, it probably won't be.
Yeah.
I just, cause like I said, I do trades. So I'd say like my favorite stuff is the stuff that I've been talking about in Rotten Book Club. I'm trying to like convince everybody to read my favorite books. It's been like American Vampire, which is at a sort of halt right now because Scott Snyder is never not writing Batman.
Yeah.
Saga, which I feel like is a no-brainer. Yeah, I would say like it's still American Vampire and Saga, but I'm also the type of person where there's a lot of independent books coming out from like small press, like, TKO, Black Mask Studios, and Aftershock. And then you got guys like Garth Ennis who wrote Preacher and The Boys. Yep. He's writing these books called A Walk Through Hell, and like all these small little books that I'm just sort of just like taking all, like I'm trying to read them all. And all my favorite stuff to read currently is still, my favorite stuff to read for the last 10 years. Like I'm still trudging through the Mignola verse. So it's like, still reading whatever new Hellboy and BPRD stuff comes out. Yep. That's all my favorite lore. But yeah, Saga and American Vampire, I'd say my two ongoing favorites. And then like any new title I can get my hands on, I'll just like look at the cover the way I did when I was a kid and go, that looks like it could be cool.
Right.
I maybe have never heard of this person. Cool content. I'll check it out.
That's awesome.
It's not a lot of the big two stuff. I just wait.
Yeah. For mine was one of the big two. It's the Hickman's new X-Men universe.
Oh, I have the House of X, Powers of X
hardcover. Same.
It's fucking great, but I'm just letting the X-Men stuff marinate.
Yeah.
Until it's done, and I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that we get a good mutant title because they're so disrespected.
Yeah, so I have that hardcover, and then they've been doing, because about 1 billion comic runs sprung off of that one.
Of course.
And my friends who do weekly have been getting all of them, and I'm like, you guys are psychopaths. And then they started announcing that they're doing volume. So volume 1 is issue 1 of all the runs. And I have volume 1.
Which is kind of annoying.
It is, but they all tie in together because I tried to read them. I bought a few of the first issues of Dawn of X. I think I had like the first 4 issues. It was before I totally switched to trades, because I mostly bought all trades, because once I started in comics, I just bought all the big event books. I bought Infinity Gauntlet, Secret Wars, Secret Invasion, which Secret Invasion is impossible to read as a trade because it makes zero sense. Just stuff like that. A ton of Batman.
If you don't read the extra stuff and you only read like the linear run, it's a really short story.
And that's pretty much what I did. And I bought like Civil War, all the big ones, which is crazy because I think I bought Civil War in Hot Topic. Like I said, my wife's a manager for Hot Topic, and when Civil War came out, they were selling the graphic novel, which is pretty cool. But I bought it there. I was like, yeah, I'll buy it.
Banger.
Yeah, that run is amazing.
I find that it's kind of easy if you do just events. I feel like you have a decent grasp. Yeah, you have a decent grasp of what's going on in the Marvel universe.
Super easy.
I cannot say that for DC, but you don't have to read all the ongoing titles. I just try to stick with the artists and the writers that I really like. And I just go, okay, I'm going to keep reading Daredevil. I'm going to keep reading Moon Knight, Punisher. I'm going to hop on Thor, depending on who's on it. I don't have to read all these things. Sometimes just the events is enough.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I've been doing. And then when someone will recommend something to me, I'll be like, oh, I'll check it out. And if I like the first one, I just keep going. And
totally.
Everything like that. So for me, the favorites, like I said, the new Hickman, I love House and Powers of X. It's probably one of the most complicated things I've ever read, and it's a comic book. But
it is a Hickman book.
Yeah, for sure. And I've started into volume 1, but I've just been reading other stuff, and I'll go back to it because they're on like volume 3 or 4 for the trades, and it's on issues like fucking 9 and 10. So I was like, I'll just wait. That's not going anywhere. And then the other one for me is Saga, same as you. I finished the last volume last night, and I am so mad. Not because it sucked, but because I know it's been on hiatus for like 2 years, and I don't know when I'll ever know
totally
what's happening after what they leave you with the most fucked cliffhanger.
And that's how I feel about American Vampire. It's like every time that they finally put out another couple issues, I feel like I imagine in my head, I don't know that this is a fact, but every time Scott gets done with another creator-owned property, they're just like, we'll give you $1 billion to write another Bat title. And he goes, okay. Like,
yeah, because I know he's working on the sequel.
I feel like we'll never see the end of Witches. We'll never see.
Yeah, because he's working on the sequel for Dark Knight's Metal now.
Man, I don't like to shit on people's art. I read Dark Knight's Metal, and I was like, I was kind of just, I felt like that Pulp Fiction gif where, he's looking around like, I'm like, what did everybody, like, what was the, I read it and everybody's like, this is the best fucking title. I was like, maybe I'll have to reread it. I just, I didn't really care.
Yeah, I just finished that, and I definitely wouldn't say it's the best thing I've ever read. I like the way it ended, because I thought it did the typical comic book thing where it just undoes everything, but then they explained at the end that it didn't undo everything, and I was like, oh, okay, good.
And it opened the door for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And again, I can't do what a lot of people do. I'm not disrespecting anybody's art. It's just for me, I just read it and I was like, this was not what everybody made it out to be. The last amazing Bat title to me was White Knight.
I have the trade, but I haven't read it yet.
Oh my God. Yeah. Did you read Punk Rock Jesus?
No.
Okay. So not another plug. Rotten Book Club. We did Punk Rock Jesus. The guy that did Batman White Knight, that was his creator-owned book. It's 6 issues, super easy to read. I recommend everybody in the world read it. That way, when you read White Knight and you're like, this is the shit, you'll know exactly why it's the shit.
But yeah, my friend either gave it to me or sold it to me because he has all the single issues. So he's like, yo, do you want the trade? And I'm like, fuck yeah, it's Batman. Yeah. I'll take pretty much anything Batman.
Phenomenal book. It'll make you hate Batman, but you'll appreciate that it made you hate Batman.
Yeah, I'm okay with that kind of stuff. I like hating people. I watch wrestling. I like hating people for the right reasons.
Oh yeah, there you go. Did you read real quick, again? Not to. I'm sure we'll get off topic a lot. People that listen to this will be like, Mike is a spaz. But did you read Fantastic Four by Hickman?
No. No. But I read. Does it lead into Secret Wars or is it after?
Yes, but it's years and years before Secret Wars. I don't think there's anybody that can run a long game like Hickman. The seeds that he plants in Fantastic Four will come back up years later. Then they do like Illuminati. That leads into the new Avengers run that he wrote concurrently.
Yep.
And that leads into Secret Wars.
Yep.
So you're able to read Secret Wars and go, oh, wait, holy shit. Like the incursion stuff, they talk about that stuff way before.
Yeah.
So as soon as I found out he was writing the X books, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait until 6 years from now when I read whatever book he's writing and I can look at House and Powers and go, he fucking did it again. Like,
oh yeah. As soon as I read that book, not like I've read a fuck ton of comics or anything, but that is my favorite event book I've ever read. It is so fucking cool.
And it's a hard group of people to write. I'll say that again, not to disrespect all the people that have been writing X-Men, but god damn, man, it's like you'll get a couple good issues of X-Men from whoever's writing it, and then some event will come along and they just are like, we put out a new movie, so we're gonna try to do this event, stop writing this title or wrap it up on issue 12, and then we're like, what the hell, man? Like
that's another good thing I think that happened with the whole Hickman X-Men verse is that he kind of wiped the slate clean, and now it's all it's not starting from square one because it's still the same characters you knew, but once you read it, you realize they kind of started from square one.
That's why I like the Ultimate Comics stuff. The Ultimate Comics X-Men stuff to me was so good, and it was its own thing. They weren't beholden to any of the other source material.
Right.
It's like another universe. That shit was so good. And then they literally destroyed the Ultimate Universe.
Yes.
Because of a Hickman story.
Yeah. Oh yeah, everything's convoluted. Don't worry. We got you.
But I will say that event was great. That Secret Wars was an event that people shit on super hard. And I'm like, I don't understand your grievance with this book. Doctor Doom being basically the god of a planet that's made of all the best Marvel stories.
Yeah.
I'm on board. That shit was so good.
Yeah, like I said, that's my favorite event book I've ever read, and I cannot. Anytime someone's like, "I want to read something new," and I go, "Buy Secret Wars and read it." Seriously,
so fun,
so good. Especially if you love the MCU, you don't need to know anything else. You just read it. It makes perfect sense because you know who these characters are, and it's wild. And it's not a lot of the main MCU people. I guess it's turning to what the main MCU is going to be now moving forward, but a lot of it's quote unquote side people or people just coming into the limelight. So that's even cooler because I read it.
Yeah, it's all it's like all the alternate use.
Yeah,
it's all like the alternate universe. Like I'm sure if you've never read Marvel comics, it would be weird to jump into a book. You're like, so what fucking planet are we on where there's there's a Marvel Zombies versus Age of Ultron area here. Every Thor that's ever existed is a cop, and Doctor Strange is like, it's just
the right-hand man to God that is Doom.
Yeah. I try to say like a fun one is Avengers versus X-Men.
Yeah.
I mean, all of them require a certain understanding of like previous material, but some of those event books are really good. And I think people just, comic book critics to me are the same as movie critics. I don't know what they're bitching about, but I try to, if it's people that I know, I try to remember what kind of person they are so I can be like, oh, they're only bitching about it because they're this type of person. But you shouldn't let anybody's opinion affect your taste on anything because you'll end up reading it years later and being like, why the fuck did I listen to that person? That book was so fun.
Yeah, exactly. So what medium do you usually gravitate toward? Is it fully comics, or do you enjoy both when it comes to the TV and the movie side?
I'll take what I can get, especially because it's, I'll be that guy. With kids, it's unique. I only work at night after everybody's gone to bed. That's like the only time I play video games. So I will always be a physical collector because someday I hope to be like Belle from Beauty and the Beast, where I have a library that I can ride a ladder across and just sort of like briskly touch the tips of my fingers to all my Omnibuy. like I want to have the physical copies of everything. I will read a lot of stuff in digital recently just because I want to be like, whether I take it or leave it. And then if I love it, I'll always buy physical copies. And back when they used to have conventions, which for people listening to this podcast, there was a world where you could go outside and there were conventions and concerts.
What a time.
I will try to buy copies from the artists because
awesome.
they get their comp copies. It's like bands with merch. You should always buy bands merch.
Of course.
So I'll be like, hey, do you have a copy of your book? I'd like to buy it directly from you. Otherwise, I'll go buy it from the shops that I rely on.
Right.
But the television shows, the movies, all of it, all media is good to me. Like I try to watch. I just started watching Vikings, which like my in-laws were like, you should check this show out, But
I've heard it's very good.
It It's pretty good so far. I don't have all the free time in the world, but I think I'm watching Vikings and Hunters right now. And then I'm like reading I go back and read a lot of old stuff. I'd say that's my favorite thing about this time, is that it gives everybody an opportunity to go back and read a lot of like old material. There's no new stuff coming out. So now you can be like, well, I've always liked insert character here. Maybe I'll go read this book from 1980.
Right. It is the perfect time for that, for sure.
Yeah, I'm not one of those people that suggest, I know that there's like a lot of old heads that are like, you need to read the 1990 X-Men. I don't, because comics were harder to read back then. But if you were a fan back then, it was easy. But for people now, I try to give them like fresh material that's like something, I don't know, with a little spunk to it.
Yeah, it's like
that stuff was
drags you in, and then it's not like a chore to read. Because I remember one of the first Batman graphic novels I bought Dark Knight Returns, or Sam bought it for me. I don't remember at this point. Who knows? When you're married, it all blends together. It's all the same shit, you know. And I remember trying to read it for the first time, and I'm like, this is hard to read. It's all words, and it's not like crazy exciting conversation either. And you're just like, holy fuck.
Plus, I try to make sure that people understand. There are certain writers that were writing things in the 80s that would not be acceptable to write now. So I need you to make sure that if you were to start a book like Preacher, that you understand that is what Garth Ennis thought of Americans. Yeah. And the things that they say and do, or like Frank Miller.
Oh yeah.
There's a all-star Batman and Robin. Batman literally like calls Robin a pussy for crying. And I'm like, this is probably not going to be the book you expect it to be. So go into this. I don't even like that book, but I'm just saying, like, you might read something like The Dark Knight Returns and you're like, oh my God, what fucking Batman is this? Like,
yeah, it's totally different time. Yeah. Like that book's like 30 years old or something, isn't it? I think older than that now, but yeah.
Just try to be honest about what they're going into. Like, this is a grumpy old bat beating the fuck out of people, and he's like, imagine Clint Eastwood if he was Batman. Built like Henry Cavill and just like fucking people up. Yeah.
Weird thing about Clint Eastwood, I heard this on a podcast this week. There was supposed to be a Batman Beyond movie in the 2000s, like before X-Men came out, and Clint Eastwood was going to be older Batman in it.
I'm for it. He would have been perfect.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be the first darker take on Batman, obviously way before The Dark Knight came out or anything, and now it's supposed to happen. I don't know why it didn't happen. I guess the information leaked that it was supposed to happen recently, and I was like, that's insane.
I think a lot of properties got bought up, and they just decided. I don't know how the inside workings, the inner mechanics of the production world are. They buy properties, and then I don't know what they do with them.
And that was the prime time for everyone buying different IPs and everything, especially from Marvel or DC.
And during like the writer's strike, they were buying up all kinds of properties back then. Like because there was nobody writing new films, they were just buying up all kinds of pre-existing material.
Yeah. Like you said, anything that's comic related, you pretty much watch it. I'm kind of the same way. Even if it's something I'm not familiar with, usually I'll watch it and then I'll buy the book based on. I did it with Umbrella Academy. I watched Umbrella Academy. Well, I had the volumes, but I didn't read them yet because I know with some of the indie books, it can go either way to how much they take from the source material. So I want to see it fresh first, and then I'll go back and read it and see what differs. That's what I did with Umbrella Academy. And I was like, oh, that's cool. It's cool how they did that different and how they made it make more sense for people to watch on TV and everything. So do you think we're in like the prime time of comic related content? Because it seems like, especially for indie stuff, it's just all this new indie stuff gets greenlit for a TV show or a movie.
It's definitely a what a time to be alive moment for a comic book fan. I mean, I remember driving down the freeway in Orange County and seeing a Guardians of the Galaxy billboard and just being like, this is the future that I created for myself. Like what? I was like, what is happening? I'd say it would have to be. Could it get better? You know, like there's so much property getting greenlit. I don't think there's any other time where we could be watching all these things. Like who's thought that we would ever be watching The Boys or Happy or Preacher on a television show? And I would say that some of the stuff exceeds my expectations to the point where I enjoy some of the shows more than I enjoy some of the books.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I didn't go back and read The Boys, because I've heard it's pretty close. They made it a little less wacky. And they're like, but I kind of like the TV show better than the graphic novel, honestly. And I was like,
you
oh.
absolutely have to. So it's like Preacher and the Boys, good example. Preacher is an entertaining show. The book to me is better. The Boys is such a fucking awesome book, but I think the show is better. I think they've the way that they are presenting that story to you is much more digestible, and the way that they're doing Homelander. I mean, reading Homelander in the book, he's sort of like this buff do-gooder, but he's a psycho.
Yeah.
But he seems almost kind of cartoonish. The guy that's playing Homelander in the Boys show is fucking incredible. You get like chills watching that dude be a psycho. You're like, oh my God, he is unhinged.
Yeah, the fact that he goes
like
from
when they did the airplane scene on the show, it's so much. Ugh.
I just love seeing him go.
I love the little changes they made for the show.
Yeah, seeing him go from Superman, like how we see Superman, to complete utter psycho in the snap of a finger is the craziest shit to watch ever.
His like Freudian obsession with like the other character that's like maternal to him.
Yeah.
And then like the airplane scene. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't read the book, but there's like a major plot point that they changed for the cliffhanger of the first series. And it plays so hard to the show. Like it works perfectly. I think the show is better. Yeah.
I'm hoping they drop that second season sometime soon.
I feel like they probably filmed it. I guess I just don't know what's going on with like how they release stuff now.
Yeah, I don't either, because they posted a trailer for it a month or two ago.
Yeah,
so I would imagine it's done or close.
As long as you can suspend disbelief, I'd say this is the best time to be a fan. There are a lot of people that don't. They bitch about source material, but I'll bring up Tony Stark as the perfect example for why it's easy to suspend disbelief. I'm a big Ultron fan. Am I mad that Tony Stark is the character that created Ultron in the film? No, because they spent 5 years letting the audience know that this is a super smart science guy.
Right.
It would be so hard for them to just have Hank Pym show up and be like, "What's up? I'm Ant-Man. By the way, I'm also super fucking smart, and I made that robot." like there are these changes that work. Obviously, you couldn't do Civil War, the book, in the film because you have like 150 characters that aren't even in the cinematic universe that they're not going to kill. Like they're not going to go fuck up the New Warriors and lead you into Civil War. They have to give you. I think Kevin Feige. I think what Marvel did successfully is they trusted one person to sort of guide the universe.
Right.
Instead of all these cooks in the kitchen like Warner Brothers, where everybody's sort of in charge of their own thing. They made it so linear. They made it work. They made Winter Soldier work perfectly. And I don't know how much of that was to for the Russos. Like, I don't know how much of that had to do with Feige or the Russos. Whoever did it, they nailed it. Winter Soldier was one of my favorite books. So it was my favorite movie because it was the least, I mean, they're all campy, right? But, Winter Soldier was a spy. It was a spy movie.
Yeah, it was straight up a spy movie.
Captain America starts to distrust his government. Yeah. And then it gives you the perfect introduction into Civil War. You had Age of Ultron and then the Winter Soldier thing. And it's just like a perfect storm. And I think that if you can just let go of the source material, you'll appreciate how well the cinematic universe was able to handle some of this shit.
Yeah, and that's the same. Like I said, I go back and research stuff, even if I don't read the full stories. So I get a grasp of what stuff comes from and everything. Mm-hmm. But I love that they've taken, I call it a love letter to the comics, because they don't copy anything. They take ideas and then they mold it to what makes sense in their universe that they created. Because I know a lot of people they were like, Civil War should have been darker, or, because obviously in the novel, like Captain America gets killed or whatever. And I was like, so many people miss the whole point of Civil War. They lose. They don't win. They lose.
Brilliant.
Winter Soldier kills Tony's parents. Cap kept it from Tony. They fall out hard. The bad guy wins. And a lot of people shit on Civil War because they're like, it's not dark enough. And I was like, if you didn't have that movie, Infinity War and Endgame they would not hit the same way at all.
How much darker did you want it to be? I hate this whole. I realized that Batman gave us these weird expectations for dark films. You just have to know that Christopher Nolan took something and made it great. Do not expect everything else to line up with that.
No.
And how much darker did you want it to be when Tony Stark found out that Bucky killed his family, and they had that fight at the end? Like, how much darker does it need to be for you? Like, and what does darker even mean? And honestly, if these books were like to the letter, or if these films were to the letter with the books, like, would you really appreciate them? Or are you glad that you get this totally new thing?
Right. And like you said, I've heard so many people be like, oh, it's not like how the comics are. And I'm like, did you really want it to be?
Yeah. Did you want the exact same fucking thing? Or is it cool that now you can say, oh God, just James Spader as Ultron, his relationship with Tony and that whole interaction, I wouldn't have traded that for the world. And all these little changes, they benefited the story, especially when you go through the roller coaster that is the Marvel Universe, and then you get to Endgame. And instead of referencing all these comic book things like you expect the single movies to do, Endgame now gets to reference the source material of the films.
Yeah, the whole
it's like
10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, my father-in-law was like, well, can I watch Endgame and just know what's going on? I was like, yeah, you absolutely can. But I tell you, if you watch all of the films and then see Endgame, it is a motherfucker. Like, what an emotional roller coaster like that film is.
So for the first time last week, I watched Infinity War straight into Endgame.
Yeah.
I stopped before the big fight scene because every time I've watched it, I've cried like a baby. And
100%.
It was like 2 a.m. and Sam's like, I'm going to bed. I'm not ready for this. And I go, that's fair. I'm going to stop at 2 because I'm not trying to cry by myself in the living room at 2 a.m. right now.
I get the chills thinking about it. So I went to go see So there was a couple films I went to go see by myself just because my wife was going to school at the time. Our schedules were kind of screwed up. So I went to go see these movies alone. So I went to go see Endgame by myself, and just like the pop of the audience when Sam says on your left, I'm like, oh my fucking God, this is fucking happening right now. And like, as a father too, there were so many points in that movie I was like, I'm going to die. I'm going to kill myself. I was like, I can't fucking deal with this movie right now.
Yeah, I'm not a dad. And when you
like the Tony arc and all that stuff, it was like a perfect film.
Or even like when Paul Rudd says, you're so big to Cassie, I'm not a father at all. And that made me tear up the first time I watched it. I was like, why?
You ruined me.
Yeah, that I've talked about that movie probably in every podcast because I think it's just the perfect movie, pretty much.
Yeah, it really is.
Especially for a comic book. Anyone who loves anything pop culture, nerd related, there's no better film than that, for sure.
The only people that don't like those films are the hashtag release the Snyder Cut people. And what an emotional time it must to be a DC fan. Because right now, and it's not like I'm not a Marvel fanboy. I'm a fan of everything, but it must be so hard to be a DC fan because while we're able to competently have a discussion on the source material versus the films for Marvel, you can't have that conversation, I feel like, sometimes with the DC film because every single film is different. It's like, okay, this movie respected the source material, but what's the next film going to be? Like, are they going to fuck up this movie? Is this next movie going to step on the toes of this movie? And so on and so on. It's like that with the X-Men films and the DC films.
Yeah, thank God the X-Men is going to be in this bigger world. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I trust Kevin Feige to make it happen.
I feel like it's going to be a long introduction, and I absolutely am that guy that's like, I have my theories. I have theories on how to work, but I'm just not the person that posts on the internet about them. I kind of like, I steer clear. The reason I didn't do live videos and stuff for the longest time is because even though I have opinions, I feel like I don't want to share them because I just don't want to deal with other people being like, no, fuck that. I'm like, oh, this is all rhetorical. I don't actually need your opinion. Like this, I don't need you to tell me why it's bullshit.
Yeah, this is me just spitballing because I think it would be cool. Like, we're not Kevin Feige. Yeah. We're not the people making these decisions. I recorded another podcast with Davey Muse, and we fan casted the MCU X-Men. That one was super fun to do. But even in that, we're like, because we kind of said we hope they do. Well, I said I hope they do. They kind of phase one the X-Men. They start introducing them into new movies, have them do solo films, and then the big team up is the first X-Men movie, kind of like how they did with the Avengers in the beginning. Will they do that? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and address this real quick since we're on the topic. If we have fan theories, here's how I think this will go down. How do you exist in a world where the Avengers have this long history? You know, as all the way back to the introduction of S.H.I.E.L.D., we've known about metahumans or superpowered people. How would we live in a world where we didn't know the X-Men exist? Unless they spent, 50 plus years just hiding, which I just don't think is in their nature. Yeah. I think that the only way to address it is like an alternate universe thing where maybe there's a universe. Yeah. Instead of the Avengers, there's a planet where it was just mutants, and then there's like an incursion. Maybe we'll get Avengers versus X-Men. Who fucking knows?
Yeah. No idea.
If you talk about how cool a Marvel movie is, generally on Twitter, you'll get like, oh, you're a Marvel shill. They paid you. I have one of my old roommates is a writer for Heroic Hollywood. And anytime he posts an opinion on anything, I read it and I go, this is why I don't tell anybody my opinions on anything online. You're a fucking Marvel shill. Release the Snyder Cut. I'm like, what?
What? Though,
what's happening?
If they did release the Snyder Cut with all the shit he has posted about, I would watch that movie because I didn't really like Justice League. But I'm not going to tweet that because is it going to happen? I don't know. Probably not.
I'll watch every movie. And again, it's to me the big issue is you got to suspend disbelief. You got to be able to watch a film and treat it like its own thing.
Yeah.
Try not to attach. There are some times where there are massive changes in shows, and you're like, oh, okay, well that's kind of fucked up. Like, why did they have to do that?
Right.
But you just have to be able to watch it like its own thing, and that's why I'm so glad that there's so much creator-owned stuff getting made. You don't really hear those kinds of complaints coming from fucking Walking Dead people. Daryl Dixon doesn't exist in the book. A lot of times they were making characters in the television show to extend the longevity of the book characters that people liked, but they're so different and you can appreciate them both. I feel like people love The Walking Dead, but they don't give it the snaps it deserves. It's a phenomenal book, phenomenal show. I don't know. You just got to be able to detach yourself. You didn't hear anybody. I mean, I guess the internet is definitely its own worst enemy, and the internet wasn't a big thing when movies like Blade came out.
Right.
So you couldn't get those people talking shit, but we were all watching Marvel films before the MCU existed, and we were loving all of them. You know? And then there's graphic novels that people didn't even know were graphic novels that we were able to watch. And, you know, we watched Road to Perdition, which is one of my favorite films. Fucking graphic novel. From Hell, graphic novel. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. A lot of Alan Moore shit.
Yeah.
I think, and the best film adaptation, ironically, objectively, is like one of them is Watchmen.
Yeah.
That's technically DCU.
Yeah, and it's almost the same other than the means of the ending. They changed that, but
totally.
It's the graphic novel made into a movie. It is.
Yeah. And the director's cut that's like 16 hours long is basically
it's so long.
and again, I get it.
Did you watch the show?
Difference. No, I watched the first episode, but it's one of those things that I have to like set time aside for.
Yeah, it's probably the best TV show, like period, I've ever seen.
Really?
But it's hard to judge it that way because it's one season and it'll never go past that. David Lynch is this one, okay, so Watchmen ends, I guess, on a cliffhanger, but they close all the boxes. So it starts off like an HBO drama. I watched the first episode with my wife and she was like, I'm not into this. Whatever. And then after a few episodes, it gets real Watchmen real fucking fast. It gets fucking crazy, but they do everything it's just so much care and love is put into that. You can tell. And
I'm excited.
It's because it's like canon to the book. It's almost like a sequel to the book in a way. Okay. Because it's like a post-Watchmen book world.
Okay. So post the end of the book or the film?
Book.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on board. I want to watch it. There's been a lot of really good series that have come out. The absolute best one to me was Deadly Class. And then it got canceled because if anybody listening to this podcast works for Sci-Fi, eat my shit. They just canceled every good show that they made. But Deadly Class to me was not only the best television adaptation, but if you had just watched Deadly Class on its own, one of the best shows I've ever seen.
That show was awesome. I watched that too. Good. It was so sick.
And then they canceled it, and I was just
they ended super cliffhanger season finale, and they're like, "Yeah, never coming back." I know you mentioned on the book club last night, and you mentioned the Russo brothers, but I think they kind of used their name to make it bigger. Totally. Like, oh, the Russo brothers are a part of it, but they weren't really that big a part of it.
I think they were just producing it, and it's kind of like when people say like a Tim Burton film, but he was just producing it.
Did you see it? Yeah.
What is that? There was a company that there was a company that made a T-shirt, I think, that said like Nightmare Before Christmas is not a Tim Burton film, like, or something like that. Or it was like, make Nightmare Before Christmas not Tim Burton again, or something like that. Yeah, obviously you're going to try to push a film by putting your name on it.
Yeah.
I think they did. I think that they produced it and they just had confidence in the material.
Yeah.
Obviously they didn't make it what it was. The cinematography of that show is fucking perfect. Everything about that show is fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, that show was amazing. And having Wong in it. Yeah, he was awesome in that show. And the whole story arc with him was super cool too.
And I love, the reason I like it, you know, like they take these no-name actors and they are now, like they might have been in a couple things before, but it's so cool to see fresh faces just crush it.
Yeah.
I fucking love all the actors in that show.
Yeah, they were all
the kid
great.
That plays Billy, it reminds me of my oldest son. Like, I fucking love everybody in that show.
Yeah, that show is awesome. And those are the shows that make me want to go and buy the books and read them. Especially now that it's
books are phenomenal.
Now that it's ended, I'm just like, oh, I'll just continue the story in the books instead. And then kind of imagine it with the people who played it in the show a little bit.
Yeah, you now have their voice in your head.
Exactly.
Like you're able to, because usually when you're reading a book, you're just kind of trying to imagine what the person would be like.
Yes.
And that's what makes the films so interesting, because Joey made a good point. Tony Stark is a total douchebag. There are absolutely characters that you don't care about until the right person plays them or the right person writes them.
Yep.
I probably would have never read Green Lantern in my entire life had I not read Jeff Johns' Green Lantern. Like, there's characters that I don't care about, and then the right person gets a hold of the material, and you're like, yep. I never knew it could be like this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, obviously, MCU Thor now is nothing like Thor has ever been. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And how are you going to relate?
I didn't love the first two films. I thought it was cool that we got to see them, but the third one was the best for me.
Oh, 100%. It's funny, though, because if you go back and watch, like, him in the Avengers in the first one, it makes it funnier because of how serious he is. But
totally,
you take the seriousness as, like, a joke now, which I think it was hard to at the time, because it's so weird how they move forward and they make other films better than they were, you know, by changing things. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's just like the books. Like, it just takes the right person. Yeah. Or, like, you know, the right arc, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm so glad this happened. But the third film was so fucking Jack Kirby.
It's so nuts.
And then, like, a lot of, like, weird, like, Simonson story stuff, and there's just like, oh, this is good. I'm here. Yeah. And since they can't get the rights from Universal for Hulk stuff, you got to see, like, a little bit of Gladiator Hulk in that, because you're never going to see that in a Hulk solo film.
No.
Poor Hulk.
Poor Hulk. Yeah, I guess Mark
Ruffalo
came out saying that he does want a Hulk solo film eventually, and that he's probably going to be in She-Hulk, which is cool and makes sense, obviously.
You just got to make Universal sell or do a Sony type deal.
Well, the person who made the Sony deal now works at Universal, so I mean that's possible now.
It could happen.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone can make it happen, it's fucking Marvel and Disney, obviously.
Totally.
So, what hasn't been adapted that you'd want to see adapted, whether it's a TV show or a movie, or you can give me one of both, or as many ideas as you want? I'm just curious to see, with someone who's read so much different stuff, what you would like to see get turned into something.
Well, I'm glad that a lot of creator-owned properties are getting turned into television series and films. If I had to pick, like, Marvel stuff, I would like to think that in a perfect world we'll get Fantastic Four with Jonathan Hickman stuff in it, and that would be the gateway to unlocking, like, all the Marvel X-Men stuff.
Yep.
You know, we'll get, like, a good Doctor Doom, we'll get some incursion stories. I feel like Secret Invasion is sort of gonna happen,
but not like how it was. I don't think.
No,
I feel like it's gonna be different. They've definitely already planted the seeds for sure.
Yeah. I don't know about DC stuff just because they're so all over the place.
Yeah.
But I would just like to see I would love to have seen the Flash film. I love Ezra Miller. I would have had a lot of fun with that. I'm glad that we got one season of Swamp Thing. Like, that Swamp Thing's one of my favorite characters. I have, like, big old Swamp Thing right there.
Yeah.
But more creator-owned stuff. I would like to see Adam Warlock in the third Guardians film. I feel like the seeds have been planted for a lot of the stuff that I want to see adapted. Yeah. There's some small creator-owned stuff that I think in my head I would like to see as a film or a television series, but then I'm like, oh, are they going to fuck it up? Like, I would love to see Black Science by Rick Remender. Rick Remender did, like, Uncanny X-Force, Deadly Class, Black Science. Yeah. I would love to see Black Science, but if we get a good Fantastic Four, which is not his, I'll take it. Because Black Science is sort of like Lost in Space meets Fantastic Four meets, like, a very dark story. Like it's a very dark version of
Fair.
Fantastic Four, Lost in Space. I would like to see this book called Peter Panzerfaust turned into a film, because it's basically Peter Pan without the fantasy. It's like Peter is an American who is in France during the Blitzkrieg. He rescues a bunch of teenagers from an orphanage. They end up being the Lost Boys.
Wow.
There's an SS officer hunting them that he stabs in the hand with a bayonet. That guy ends up needing to get a hook. You know, you get the idea. So it's like two of my favorite
sick.
Dude, it's Peter Pan in World War II.
I can see that being easily a movie or TV show. Easy.
Yeah, if the right person gets it. Imagine if we see something like 1917 or Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan, but a Peter Pan story.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, the guy Curtis that writes it, he also writes Rat Queens. But Peter Panzerfaust was 5 volumes. The book's already done. It's like my favorite sleeper book. I feel like they tried to do a lot of stuff that I liked in shows. They did Outcast by Robert Kirkman, but it sort of like didn't go anywhere. Deadly Class got made. So I also like kind of being surprised. I don't want to be one of the people that's like, I need you to make this story.
Right.
As soon as Marvel announced they were doing the Eternals, and I own the Neil Gaiman book, like as soon as they announced they're doing that, I was like, whoa, this is like a left field sort of selection, because this is something that nobody knows. So maybe they know something that we don't, and I'm here for it. I don't want to have any theories. I want to just let it happen. But there are some creator-owned things that I would have loved to see made into a television show.
Yeah, I think the big one for me is that now that the Fantastic Four are coming and everything, I feel like the next Endgame might be something like Secret Wars. They'll call it Secret Wars.
Dude.
Because there's some panels in that, if they steal those panels, like if Thanos comes down, and we don't hear about Thanos for fucking 10 years, and he comes and just shows up, people will fucking lose their shit, and then he just gets blown up to nothing by fucking God Doom. Dude, I would lose my fucking mind.
That was the cool thing about some of the DC films, is that you get, it's all about reoccurring villains, right?
Oh yeah.
As soon as Ultron ended, I was like, okay, but when's he coming back? Because we know that every time Ultron comes back, he comes back way gnarlier than he was the last time. So when are we going to start to taste some of that? Like, you know what I mean? Like we're going to get some of these reoccurring characters. That would be phenomenal if Thanos showed up. And even if it wasn't Doom, even if someone was like Kang the Conqueror, he's just like, get out of here, bitch. Like, you know what I mean? Like you really get to see like this. Yeah. You know what I mean? I want to see some of these reoccurring characters. We're going to get to see Zemo again.
Yep.
So I guess that's a first where you're like, oh, a reoccurring villain. Like
other than Red Skull, kind of.
Yeah.
Smaller. He wasn't really a villain. He was just there. That was a shock.
You want to see, you want to see a villain lose and come back like, all right, I fucking figured it out. Like,
I definitely think that Ultron will come back, because they launched this new VR game that Ultron's in that's technically canon to the MCU somehow or something, I guess.
I'm ready for it.
I hope he comes back for sure, and I definitely think Hela will come back, because I give it the Star Wars rule: if you fall and you don't see them die, they're not fucking dead. They always come back.
They're Phasma.
Yeah, they always come back. No one ever dies if they fall in Star Wars ever.
That's the rule of thumb.
Yeah, so she fell. I don't think she's dead. Don't think she's dead. So
you got a standing 8 count. We didn't see you get knocked out.
Yeah. She's definitely not dead. I didn't see her die in front of me. Not dead. No way. So that was the big movie one. And this is wild, and I don't think they could do it, but I have a feeling that Saga will be made into a TV series.
They own the property. Somebody owns the rights. Like Brian K. Vaughan, I think, sold the rights for it to be made, but they did the same thing with Why the Last Man. Like, I don't know if they'll ever do it, but
yeah.
Have you seen Carnival Row?
No, but after you said it, because I heard some bad things about it, and then I heard you say that it was awesome, so I was like, oh, maybe I'll check it out.
So here's my thing about Carnival Row. It's a great show, but you watch it, if you've read Saga, you're like, wait a minute. Like, this feels like
Saga.
It feels like, obviously not to the letter, but there are parts of it where it's like these two races are very like star-crossed lovers in a warring society. It's like Saga. And this is what's fucked up about the film world is like, a production company might get wind of another company owning a property and they'll try to do their version of it. That's how you end up with like Bug's Life and Ants and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Is that the one Cara Delevingne's in it, right?
Yes.
Okay. I could probably
cool
get Sam loves Cara Delevingne, so I could probably get
it's a cool show. But if you read Saga, you're like, Okay.
Because it's not based off anything. It's just a show.
I believe it's based off a book. I don't know, but it reminds me of Saga a lot.
That makes me want to watch it, honestly.
Yeah.
So if, like how I said, I was kind of the rare person to get into comics after they started loving the movies and everything. And I worked part-time at a comic shop that's local to me that I'm friends with the owners, and Sam's been friends with the owners for years and years. And so when people could go shop at stores, I would work there like once or twice a week. And because they're like, oh, you know, comic shit, like you can, if someone wants help with stuff. And so many people would come in and be like, what should I buy? But it's so hard when you're in the middle of, you know, crazy runs. You know, it's not like I'm going to be like, yeah, start on Batman 84.
Yeah.
So I would always go to the trade part and I'm like, oh, what do you like? Do you like a certain character? And I'd be like, okay, check this out. I know this run is super cool, so buy this. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So if it's kind of the easiest to buy a trade for anyone who wants to get into it. But if there was a certain book that you think would grab people from the get-go, what would you recommend to people?
I used to have to do this at the comic shop that I managed too, because it's hard to suggest something to someone if you know nothing about it.
Yeah.
So, and I know that as a customer, they probably feel that pressure of being like, I don't know what I like. Like,
yeah,
I was always suggesting Saga to people. If I thought they were into Marvel stuff, I would say like, check out Uncanny X-Force. I guess it depends what they think their favorite character or they think their favorite story is, but it's hard not to always bring up Saga when you're talking about film.
It's like impossible.
Yeah. I would say if you're like, you know, I've suggested weird stuff. Like I had a guy tell me he was into like war epics. I'm like, okay, read Peter Panzerfaust, Uber. You know, I was trying to think of anything like war related.
Right.
Then, you know, but yeah, Saga is the book that I suggest for everybody to read because it's got enough fantasy in it. There's an element of romance, but then they step away from the romantic story and they concentrate on characters like the Will. But if they're into Batman, I would say read Court of Owls.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, you know what I mean? Like the Brian Azzarello Wonder Woman, if they're into Wonder Woman, or with Marvel stuff, I always say like, if you're into subtlety, read Mark Waid's Daredevil. If you are just ready to engage in some fucking insane mutant shit, read Uncanny X-Force. You know, then there's a lot of younger people that come in and they go, Deadpool, I want to read Deadpool. I'm like, okay, read Jerry Duggan's Deadpool. Like it's hard to suggest a book to someone if I don't know what they're into, but I say the best books are American Vampire Saga, Uncanny X-Force, Mark Waid's Daredevil, fucking Peter Panzerfaust, Manifest Destiny. Like, I don't know. My tastes are everywhere. So it's hard. I'd have to know what people are into.
Yeah. It's super hard. But that's still a lot of ideas for someone to get into, you know?
Everybody should read. If you're into Batman, read Court of Owls or White Knight. If you're into X-Men stuff, if you're into X-Men stuff, I'd say do Uncanny X-Force just because some of the best characters, the absolute best story. If you're into fantasy stuff, read Saga. Shit, read The Walking Dead, man. Like, yeah.
That's true. So I close all of these out with something I call Metalcore Minute. So it's just a minute. And then you list off anything you're into, which obviously you've talked about stuff you're into kind of this whole episode, but and don't do stuff to plug yourself. We'll do that after. So
okay.
So you ready?
Okay.
All right, go.
The new Code Orange record is really good. It reminds me of all the things I liked as a kid, like Nine Inch Nails and like Ministry and stuff like that. You should take this time while you're quarantined to find older stuff that you're into. Listen to bands that maybe your parents liked and you didn't know that they were actually kind of cool. Same thing with books. Apex Legends, it's better than Fortnite, and it's not as complicated as Call of Duty. You should play Final Fantasy VII Remake because it was the best video game ever made next to Kingdom Hearts. I don't know. Try to find positive hobbies and things that keep you busy in this shitty time. Create something. Fuck.
No,
Go vegan.
I'm with you on that one for sure.
Okay.
Awesome. That was sick. So before we wrap everything up, plug what you have going on, all your social media and all that stuff.
Okay. So I have a company called Revenge of the Nerd. It's ROTN616 on Instagram. I try to combine shirts based on my favorite music and my favorite comic books. Right now, obviously, I'm not trying to press people to buy shit from me because we're in the middle of a quarantine. So I'm trying to use this time to positively engage people in their fandoms. So I started a Twitch stream. It's twitch.tv /GTS, the letter X, and word death. So GTSX death. As soon as I start getting subscribers, I'll be doing like giveaways and stuff like that on there. Listen to podcasts, buy merch from bands because they're not touring right now, and a lot of them also can't work. Find creators. If you have the money, find creators that you like and try to support them. Buy some enamel pins. Maybe use this free time to try to get better at whatever it is that you want to make. Support local comic shops. I know that I'm plugging other people, but that's just kind of like,
no, that's fine.
If you have a local comic shop and you're like, oh fuck, they're probably going to close, call them. They might do curbside pickup. They might be able to mail you your books. Just support small businesses that are still around. If you want to support me, I have that Twitch stream that I listed. I have Revenge of the Nerd, ROTN616 on Instagram. I'm still putting out shirts if you guys want to buy them. If not, just tune into the Rotten Book Club, which is twice a week now, where I just read a book for 3 days and then we talk about it on Instagram Live. Just trying to keep people engaged without trying to shove shit down their throat to buy. Everybody needs to save their money. Obviously, if you want to support me, boo-hoo, I have kids. Help, But I don't know. Just try to find positive ways to use your free time. Fucking don't go outside. Don't be a dick. I don't know. I don't know what else to plug. Rotten Book Club, GTSX Death on Twitch, and fucking ROTN616 is my Instagram. If you somehow made it through an hour and a half of me rambling about shit that I like, there's not a lot of that on my Instagram because it's mostly just pictures, except for twice a week I do a video.
Awesome, man. That was perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Dude, I appreciate it. This is a really cool podcast. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thank you. That's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed two dudes nerding out about comics for about an hour and a half. As always, if you want to support the podcast, follow on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at Metalcore Nerds. Subscribe and rate on Apple Podcasts. Follow on Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. Share the episodes around on social media. And if you want to support monetarily, you go to redcircle.com/metalcore-nerds/donations. Until next time, this is Metalcore Nerds.